Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My first video deleted, so I got to do this again. So I'll make it even quicker. All right. Your homework has linear interpolation, extrapolation, and finding zeros on it. So let's go through each one of those briefly so that you guys will be able to do your homework. First, interpolation. All linear interpolation is using the approximate values between points. We're just going in between our two extremes. So say, for example, on this problem right here, we can actually do an interpolation because as you can see in the table, there's some data missing that we don't see. So you use interpolation to find data within the points to find it. So notice here how the approximate number of CD singles shipped in 94 is not here. So what we're going to do is an interpolation to find that. The first thing you notice is I'm not going to do my scatter plot. When you do your scatter plot, you're not doing it by years. Instead, you want the graph to be nice and simple. So I'm going to let X equal years since 1993. So if I do that, then you can see here, instead of 93, I'm going to put 0. Instead of 95, that's not going to be 1, that's going to be 2. And instead of 96, it's going to be 3 and 4. So notice there's a value missing. Now when we do these, on my calculator, I kind of did it ahead of time, but you guys can still see. I hit stat and I hit edit, enter. And there go the values. Let me slide over so you can see. There are the values that I'm actually using. The 0, 2, 3, 4. And the 7.8, 22, 43, 67. So my values are already in. So once my values are in, if I go to stat, calc, and I do the linear regression, enter, and enter a whole bunch of other times, and calculate the linear regression, notice it gives me all the values that I need. So based on A and B, one being 14.45 and the other one being 2.43, then that means the equation that I'm going to have, I put it up there. So the equation I'm going to have from the linear regression is y equals 14.45 x plus 2.43 based on the numbers that you see here. So since that's the case, the approximate number of CD singles shipped in 1994, if in fact you're looking for that, since it's an interpolation, notice here all we're looking for is what happens when x equals 1, because 94 is 1 year since 1993, so that's what we're trying to find, x equals 1. So to find x equals 1, go back to my calculator, and if I go to my if I go to my graph like this, the way that I can find out is I can go to second and calc. Once I do that, I'm on value, enter, and then find out what happens when x equals 1 on that best fit line. Enter, and notice y is going to equal 16.88. So since y is going to equal 16.88, then we can say that the approximate number of CD singles shipped in 1994 is going to be 16.88 million CDs shipped. So that's how we answer it. That's how we answer questions doing interpolations. Extrapolations are different. With an extrapolation, you're trying to find data outside of the data points that you have. So notice here, your singles shipped are the ones that how many CDs were shipped in 98 and 2000. This is where we're going to do a linear extrapolation. So notice that 94 was within right here. That's what made this an interpolation. But 1998 and 2000 would be outside of our original data. So that's what makes it an extrapolation. So the way we find those is since that X is represented by the years since 1993, then if it's 1998, then that means that X equals 5. And if in fact it is 2000, then that means that X equals 7. So you want to find out each one of those. Unfortunately, extrapolations you have to do by hand. You can't really do it in the calculator. So we can find out what the extrapolation is for each one of these by just plugging in the values for X. So from the function that we got from our regression, all you do is you plug in 5 and find out what that value is. And then from there, you also plug in, and that will give you how many CDs were shipped in 1998. Oh, hold on. In 98 and in 2000. So that's how we do that one part. The next part are finding a zero of a function or zeros of a function. Well, in this case, it's just going to be a 0. So in doing this, you're looking for the x value that will make f of x equal to 0. Notice that if f of x equals 0, that if you drew a graph or something like that, if you drew a graph, and say, for example, you have a line that goes through it like this, being that this is the x-intercept right here, this is where f of x would equal 0. At that point, so really you're trying to find out what value of x would this be, where f of x equals 0. So say, for example, with that, we have a function f of x equals 2x minus 4. Now, if you're trying to find the 0 of this function, all you do is just set that function equal to 0 and solve for x. So if I solve this for x, I get that x is equal to 2. So what that means is that 2 is a 0 of that function. Another example is if I get, say for example, I have f of x equals 3x plus 9, and I want to find the 0 of that function, then all I do is just set this function equal to 0. From there, I solve for x, and once I solve for x, I should get that x is equal to negative 3. So what that means is negative 3 is a 0 of that function. So if we move on and say, for example, I give you this problem, the number of jet boats purchased in the U.S. can be modeled by this function right here, where x is the number of years since 95. Find the 0 of that function. All I'm doing is, that's negative 1.23x plus 14 is equal to 0. Since that's the case, I am just solving for x. In solving for x, I should end up with x equals 11.38. So remember that x is the number of years since 95, so 11.38 years since 95. Now explaining what that 0 means is that if you have 11.38 years after 95, there will be no boats purchased. Because remember, the number of boats purchased is modeled by this equation. So if this equation equals 0, then that means that no boats were purchased. And at what time is there no boats purchased? So we'll just go over that. I'll just leave it at that. And hopefully this will help with your homework. If, in fact, you need some more help, please email me. Goodbye.